All right, so this is going to be a book review. I'm going to start a series on YouTube here where I'm just going to review some of the books that have helped me to improve some of my drawing skills. And I want to review books that I consider to be a very good source of information. And we're going to start with The Fundamentals of Drawing by Vladimir Mogilevtsev. And this is part of his trilogy, The Fundamentals of Art series. And this book right here is basically my Bible, at least when it comes to drawing figures. It's just jam-packed with very, very useful information. So, if you haven't got this book in your collection, I would seriously recommend you track it down and add it to your collection because it's just brilliant. So a little bit of background on who Mogilevtsev actually is. He's one of the art instructors. Can't speak today. Art instructors of the St. Petersburg Imperial Academy of Arts, which is located in Russia, obviously. And I consider that academy to be perhaps the best art academy in the world right now. Like, it's just the way they teach to draw and compose an image is just incredible. It's just incredible. And we'll kind of just dive right in here. But they actually properly teach the methods of the masters from centuries ago. Like, this is probably the art academy that really kept the techniques alive. As far as I know, they don't do bark plates or any of that crap. They are very much more focused on constructive drawing and perspective drawing, and then constructing a human figure in perspective, which is really how you want to draw. Especially if you want to start drawing from imagination, you're going to have to start thinking three-dimensionally and thinking about those anatomical forms in a 3D way. So that's why I consider this book a must-have, because it gives you an insight into how they do it. So you got like this really nice opening page here dedicated to the 250th anniversary of the Russian Academy of Arts. Man, that is that's a long time, and they've kept it alive all that time. They've kept these techniques going for all of that time. Now, I would love to study at this academy, but unfortunately for me, I don't speak Russian, and I also don't really quite have the money to do it. It's not very easy for me to relocate there and save up the money to be able to afford that. And I think from what I know, like most of the art ateliers in the West, I think typically they're a 3-year or a 4-year course. The course, from what I've read, of the Imperial Academy of Arts, typically it's 8 years. From what I've read, it's an 8-year curriculum. So you can imagine how much learning you would be doing in that time. So this is just an introduction about what the book is about and how to use it, and he just kind of gives you a bit of an overview of what to expect. He also gives you some examples of sketches done by old masters, some beautiful line drawings here. I think this one looks like Rubens to me, and some tonal drawing as well. Oh, this is a very interesting step here. So he's kind of giving you the step-by-step information of how to actually approach an artwork, how to actually produce it. So obviously you've got your concept here, which is basically choosing your materials. Your choice of materials is going to be very important for the appearance of the final drawing. And then obviously you've got your sketches, so that's the conceptual stage. Then you've got your rough drawing, which is, I guess, a more refined sketch and composing the image on the page, thumbnails, figuring out proportions, tonal value relationships, gesture. Then you've got to construct all of the forms on top of the rough drawing, defining the details, and then the final step, which is just unifying the drawing and finishing it all off. So I love how he breaks it down, and this kind of just proves how drawing is actually a science, okay? It's not talent. Anybody can learn it, but you do have to put the work in, okay? You really have to be dedicated. I mean, think about that. 8 years to learn how to draw and paint. That's a long time, but it kind of makes sense. It makes sense to me that it would take you that long to become a proficient artist. I mean, art is just like any other skill in the world. You can learn how to be a hairdresser, you can learn how to be a mechanic, you can learn how to be a carpenter, you can learn engineering, you can learn software. It's no different with art. You can learn how to be an artist. It's not this magical ability that people are born with. It's hard work, as we all know. All of us who draw knows that it's just hard work, and we have failed time and time again to get to where we are. And I love how this book kind of just breaks down the process of drawing, and this process will help you. So we're going to just kind of have a flick through here. I'm not going to show you all the pages, obviously, because I do think you should actually buy this book and support him, because he's done brilliant work here. Like, the fact that he's made this information available to the world is just a godsend. Because, you know, those of us who will never have the opportunity to go to an academy like that, at least we can have the opportunity to get some more insight through these visual diagrams in the form of a book. So the fact that he's made this widely available is brilliant. And I think this book has been available in Russian for quite a while, but it was only just a few years ago translated into English. So I'm just going to have a look. So the next page, this is kind of the portrait that he's sketching of this girl. You can see how he's kind of done her face construction on the front cover. All the proportions labeled on the side there. And this is such an important stage. Like, I never used to do many sketches when I was younger. I used to just kind of jump straight into the final drawing or the final painting. And then I'd wonder why it was turning out to be such a mess. And the key thing really is to make sure that you're doing all of the preparatory work. You have to do your sketches. And I do sketches all the time now. I do more sketches than I do finished artworks. And if the more you sketch, actually, the better you get. And your sketches will be artworks in their own right. Like, there are some sketches that I've done which turned out really well, and I just stuck a frame on them because I was like, you know what? That kind of looks like a beautiful work of art on its own. So sketching is actually a good thing. You know, you work a little bit quicker, you figure out the main problems of the image, and hopefully you also get a decent artwork out of it by the end that you could potentially frame and sell anyway. So sketching, hugely important. It's more important really than doing the final image, in my opinion. So we've got the here. This is him kind of composing the image. Obviously this is too large because her head fills in the space, and that's what he's saying here. This is a bad image because it's too large. This is a bad image because she's too small. She's just a bit lost in the page. This one's a bad composition, he's saying, because the head is directly in the center. And this is good because the head is above the center line. You can see the shoulders there. There's a little bit of vague information down at the bottom. And in his opinion, that's a good proportion or a good composition for a portrait, which to me kind of makes sense. That's how I was taught to do it as well. So I'm going to skip a couple of pages. And so this is kind of the rough drawing, which actually looks beautiful. I love how he calls this a rough drawing. Now, I do want to warn you, this is not beginner friendly, this book. I should have probably mentioned that a long time ago. But not beginner friendly. It's you want to make sure you're practicing your perspective drawing. And you want to practice your sketching skills as well, and just kind of get to a level where you're comfortable. And then, you know, once you've learned the basics of perspective and the basics of quick figure drawing, then I think you can jump into this one and start learning how to construct a little more. This is pretty tricky for beginners, but even if you are a beginner, I would still say pick this up because you're going to want to refer to this. This is actually a really good page because you can see, and this is why I say perspective is so important. Like, I'm not lying about that. I really mean it. Everything is affected by perspective. He's drawing the head as a box, and he's rotating the head because it's easier to figure out the rotation and the perspective of the head if you just draw it as a cube. You can figure these problems out very, very quickly. This is how I sketch my figures. Half the time, I just draw a box, and I just, I sketch it loosely. I don't try to do a deep technical perspective drawing because it's going to be a figure drawing, so I want to keep it loose and dynamic. But it's still a box. It's still very gestural. It's still, we're still figuring out the planes and the rotation, the face, which is the front of the box, and then the side of the head, which is going to be the side plane. The neck, he's simplified as a cylinder. So perspective drawing, it's all perspective. You've really just got to familiarize yourself with perspective to the point where you can just draw freely and sketch a perspective drawing very loosely and still come to a good result. So make sure you're doing those perspective exercises, guys. Don't dismiss it. I've got a whole course on that on Gumroad. Look, you don't have to check it out if you don't want to, but I'm just saying it's there if you need it. And if you're not going to learn perspective from me, then at least learn it from somewhere, just do yourself the favor and get some good perspective skills under your belt. It transformed the way I draw. Right. So now he's kind of, look, there again, perspective. He's putting in those perspective lines. They look parallel, but they're actually not. This line is a little steeper. This line up here is a little flatter. And he's drawing all the lines in between to just kind of figure out that far off vanishing point. He's also drawn the central axis of the construction of the face, right? So this is the what you would call the profile line. And that goes down the middle of the face. And so that's a great way to kind of figure out the angle that the head is turned, okay? So the central profile line is closer to this side of the face because obviously this is a 3/4 portrait. So you're actually seeing more of this side, less of this side. But that profile line, very important. And, I would use that line if I'm working from reference or if I'm working from imagination. That's just a very useful landmark to know about. So I apologize for these shadows, by the way, that's being casted on the book. I couldn't really get a good lighting today, so we're just going to have to deal with that. So it's very constructive. This is the importance of constructive drawing. Everything is really set in perspective. Everything's constructed with a profile line. Everything's drawn as like cylinders. Like you can see the back of the neck. You can actually see through the forms. He's kind of got like this X-ray drawing happening. I guess you could think of it like that. So it's not like the bark plates where you're just drawing the silhouette and then the shadow shapes and then you just render it in. It's actually very constructive, and you're about to see just how constructive it gets. I'm going to just skip a few pages. I'm going to find we've got this page on the nose here. This is how they visualize, guys. This is how they're visualizing form. It's 3D. It's not flat. It's not a flat shape. You're not doing 2D shapes. You're not thinking two-dimensionally. You're not thinking, positive and negative shapes and all that crap. I mean, look, that can help you, but at the end of the day, you really want to get good at drawing these sort of 3D schematics. It's not easy, okay? It's really not easy. Again, I've got a course on character design. I do it a little bit differently in that course. I try to simplify it a bit more because this is pretty technical. But again, in that course, I emphasize the importance of actually constructing because it's what teaches you how to draw from your head as well. And then, you can see how he's kind of constructed the nose a little more clearly. I think the previous page is where he constructs the eye. You can see the eye schematic there. You can see the nose is a little bit rougher because we're not up to that step yet. You can see how he's really solidifying it on this page, but this is part of the rough sketch. It still looks very good. But yeah, you can see just how those eyes just pop. Like they just come forward. And you know the best thing about drawing this way is you could just go through these stages. You could leave the drawing at any one of these stages. Like he could just leave the portrait like this and just stop right there. There's no need to go any further. Like that just looks like a beautiful drawing in its own right. We'll skip ahead to perhaps the last stage. This is the final step. Got some Rubens sketches here. This is just kind of, unifying all the tones, refining things, and man, you can just see how the face now, it just jumps off the page. It really does. And it's not photorealistic, it's not like the Western ateliers where they render everything to a photorealistic finish. He still left these forms quite vague and sketchy. The tones down here are very light and airy, like they're just kind of fading away. And I love that. I honestly think this is way more beautiful. And funnily enough, I also think this looks more realistic than what they do in the Western academies because he's thinking three-dimensionally and he's constructing those forms. You're getting a real feel for the 3D nature of these things. It just jumps off the page at you. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. And, I'm of the opinion, and you might disagree with me, but I'm of the opinion that a drawing should look like a drawing and not like a photograph. If you're going to make it look like a photograph, then just take a bloody photo. But I think a drawing should look like a drawing because it's actually far more beautiful. I mean, these images just have such a beauty to them that photography will never compete with. And I know I've just pissed off a lot of photographers saying that, but I think it's true. I don't think photography will ever compete with something that was done by hand, done traditionally, because if you can learn to draw like this, you have so much more control over the image. Photographers, they've got all the bells and whistles, they've got the digital cameras, they've got Photoshop, but if you're an artist and you can draw like this with just a pencil, you can actually design it in a way that it looks better. And you can actually have so much more control over the final result of the image if you can get to this level of quality, if you get to this level of skill. So I don't think photography will ever replace the traditional stuff, which, is maybe an unpopular opinion. Or maybe it is a popular opinion, I don't know, but that's my opinion. I don't think it'll ever compete because this right here is basically proof that as realists, we're not trying to compete with reality. We're trying to design it and we're trying to make it better. Why compete with photorealism when you can actually make it look better? That's like, I would much rather have all of these on my wall than a hyper-realistic drawing. Because these are just gorgeous, man. Just imagine these in frames. It's seriously gorgeous. Going to skip a few steps ahead. So we're going to have a look. He does a full figure tutorial as well. Human figure proportions here. They're a little bit confusing to read, actually. Because the text is very small. The proportions are a little bit... they're interesting. And these are very classical proportions. I don't really think these are completely true to what a natural human figure looks like. But to be fair, you kind of have to know the classical proportions because they give you some kind of solid framework with which to work in. Got the Vitruvian Man, Da Vinci, right there. That's an awesome drawing. Like, I never get tired of looking at that. Da Vinci's sketches were just something else. He was well ahead of his time as a draftsman. So you can see how he's sketching in the figure, but we've already got some of that construction in there. I don't know if it's showing up on the camera very well, but you can see how he's sketching like the basin of the pelvis. He's got like this X-ray view happening. He's got the shape of the rib cage. It's sketched in very simply, but it's still there. He's got the cylinder of the neck, so he's drawing through the figure. He's drawing the parts you can't see. And that's how I teach perspective. I've always taught my students that. Like, make sure you're drawing constructively and make sure you're drawing through the object so that you get the full visual information. Doesn't matter if you're covering up with tone, you still have to draw it. We'll skip a few pages again. Here we go. This is a good page on how he constructs the torso. Look at the planes in that. This is so important. Like, this is just... I've had a lot of people ask me how I draw figures from my head, and a lot of it I learned from this book. I also learned it from a few other sources, you know, like I don't stick with one source of information. I think it's good to diversify. But I owe a lot to this book because I love how he just simplifies everything as a box. And this is a technique I use frequently because you can just figure out the lights and the shadows right away. It's so good. Such a simple... Well, it looks simple, but I mean, it's actually a lot harder than you think. But it's just such a simple way of conceptualizing the human body. And then, of course, we get into more of this detail here, which are just basic planes. He's sketching in the main planes. The planes kind of change depending on the figure. They change depending on the body type. So you don't have to use this exact set of planes all the time. But it is very good just opening this book and just seeing how he's done it, and then maybe I can see if I can apply it to one of my human figures, you know. Like, I just use these schematics sometimes. If I'm ever stuck with anything, I can just pick up this book and just have a look, you know. You learn so much by looking. And then he's got like a more detailed anatomical diagram where all the shadow shapes are likely to be. And then he's got some of these awesome examples here from sculptures and paintings. And you can kind of see the different ways of how the body was formed. But they all follow the same general structure. Here we go. Construction of feet. And you can see on this page, the figure is really coming to life now. All of that visual construction is really, it's just bringing the figure alive. Look at that. And you know what I noticed about these Russian drawings compared to the Western ateliers is these guys are really not afraid of contrast. They're really not afraid to go dark. Like, this is so bright, and this is like just almost black, you know? There's just a huge amount of contrast in these forms. There's more contrast up here, and then there's less down here. You can see how bright these shadows are on the legs down here. And he's doing that intentionally. He's doing that intentionally because it's part of the composition. The human eye is naturally attracted to contrast. So, depending on where you want the viewer to look, you want to draw their attention to that part of the page with more contrast. So, you know, he obviously wants you to look up here around the torso and the head, and then he wants you to look here last, which is why this is a lot softer. But you know, it's still drawn beautifully. He's still drawing those anatomical forms. He's not being lazy. He's just softening it. And this is just kind of, you know, these shadows in the background are drawn very softly. They are only used as a way of supporting the rest of the drawing. It's just gorgeous. And that just leaps off the page at you. And again, I just feel like these drawings, even though they've still got a very sketchy-like quality to them, they still look more real to me than a lot of what the Westerners are doing, you know? You know, you look at like all these figure drawings by the Western academies who would, you know, do all the bark plates and the still lifes and the figures, and, you know, like, they focus a lot on blending and rendering and smoothing the form out, and as a result, like, it's still nice to look at, but their drawings just look a lot flatter, whereas this just looks you can see the forms in that. You can see all of the anatomy and just how it was constructed. It's just so much more 3D. And I think that's what makes it look more real. So it's a brilliant source of information, this book. Like I said, it's not going to be beginner friendly, but regardless of where you are at in your drawing practice, you really owe it to yourself to pick it up. Now, at the back of the book, he's got a lot of drawing samples that you can study from. So this is intended for you to sketch and study. You got some female forms here, bit curvier, bit softer. Then you got some male forms, which are, more intense shadows going on there. Brilliant book. And when you do get good at perspective, and when you do get the hang of figure drawing, you're going to want to refer to this, especially when you start composing your own images and composing your own artworks with human figures. Sometimes you don't have access to a model, and so you've got to be able to draw from your head. And this is the book that really helped me out with that, because seeing all of those schematics and the diagrams of the human form, it just helped me so much. And it just helped me in a way that, the Western academies never really did. So, I got to give props to the Russians here. They've got drawing figured out as far as I'm concerned. They are just light years ahead of us. They really are. In terms of the art world, anyway. They're just brilliant. Like this book has just blown me away. And so I guess the final part of this review, it's dragged on a long time. This was much longer than I thought it was going to go on for, but I guess we should talk about the price. I can't remember the exact price because I bought this a few years back. I actually bought the entire trilogy, so I bought all 3 books. But I think I got all 3 of them for, I think it was pretty close to $300. So I don't know, maybe you can find it cheaper somewhere. I don't know what the price is like right now. Maybe it's more expensive or maybe it's cheaper. But I think it was like somewhere between $250 to $300 for the full set. Honestly, best purchase I ever made. Best purchase I ever made. I'll have to dig up the price at some point. So maybe I'll dig up the price and maybe leave a comment on this video so you guys know. Maybe just drop the link from Amazon because I can't remember the exact price, but it was not the cheapest set of books, but probably not the most expensive either. I thought, for the value you're getting, it's brilliant. So the next video, I'm going to review the rest of the trilogy because it's a brilliant source of information. And I've got a few other books that I want to review for you guys as well. So stay tuned for that.